Imagine changing the course of human history without ever writing a single word. Jesus Christ inspired billions of people, transformed civilizations, and became the most influential live, yet he never left behind a book, a diary, or even a single letter. Why would someone with the world's most important message choose silence over writing? Think about it. Philosophers like Plato wrote books. Roman leaders recorded their achievements. Even ordinary merchants kept written records. But Jesus, the central figure of Christianity, left nothing written in his own hand. This wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate choice. The world Jesus lived in looked nothing like ours. There were no printing presses, no notebooks, no libraries on every corner. Every scroll had to be copied by hand, making books incredibly rare and unbelievably expensive. Most people never owned one.
In our time, words traveled by voice, not by ink. What you hear becomes what you keep.
We remember by telling one another.
Instead of writing lessons, Jesus told unforgettable stories: a lost sheep, a good Samaritan, a prodigal son. These simple parables were easy to remember and impossible to forget. His message wasn't trapped inside pages, it lived inside people.
Jesus didn't come to publish a book, he came to build a community. For 3 years, he traveled with ordinary fishermen, tax collectors, and laborers, teaching them face to face. His followers became living witnesses instead of readers.
After Jesus' death and resurrection, his disciples didn't immediately sit down to write books. Instead, they traveled from town to town, repeating everything they had seen and heard. For years, Christianity spread almost entirely testimony. Decades later, as eyewitnesses grew older and Christianity expanded across the Roman Empire, believers realized those precious memories needed to be preserved. It's scratch of careful and birth of the first Gospels. If Jesus never wrote anything himself, then who wrote the story of his life? The answer lies in 4 remarkable books: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They tell the same story, but each from 4 eyewitnesses, much like eyewitnesses describing the same historic event. Historians agree that the Gospels were written several decades after Jesus' death. Some are connected to eyewitnesses, while others were carefully compiled from earlier testimony. Their goal wasn't to write a modern biography, but to preserve the life, teachings, death, and resurrection of Jesus for future generations. If you've ever compared the 4 Gospels, you've probably noticed small differences. One includes details another leaves out. Some events appear in different order. Rather than proving they were copied, many historians see these variations as signs of independent testimony from different perspectives. Today, we rely on phones and notebooks to remember information. But in the ancient Jewish world, memorization was a respected skill. Students learned entire passages by heart, repeating them until every word became second nature. Jesus' teachings were preserved through this powerful tradition long before they were ever written down. Surprisingly, not a single original gospel manuscript has survived. Papyrus naturally decays over time. Instead, what historians possess are thousands of carefully copied manuscripts, more than for almost scholars to compare them and reconstruct the original text with remarkable confidence. The New Testament is supported by thousands of surviving Greek manuscripts, along with many ancient translations. While small copying differences exist, as expected in hand-copied documents, the central message remains striking across centuries.
Jesus constantly invested in people, not paper, paving healing touch. He called fishermen, healed strangers, challenged religious leaders, and transformed lives face to face. What if Jesus understood that a written book could be copied, but living disciples could change the world? By investing in people instead of publishing his own words, he created a movement carried by millions of voices rather than a single manuscript. And that may explain why history remembers him, Nasser, whose an author outlived every empire. Within just a few decades, the teachings of Jesus had spread far beyond Judea. Traders carried the message across deserts, sailors shared it in bustling ports.
Without printing traveled dangerous Roman roads, and missionary net, the story of one Jewish teacher reached the heart of the Roman Empire.
Imagine archaeologists discovering a handwritten scroll by Jesus himself. It would instantly become the most valuable document in human history. Museums would compete for it. Scholars would study every letter. Yet perhaps that very possibility explains why no such manuscript exists.
If Jesus had written his own book, it's possible that people would have focused more on the physical manuscript than on the message itself. A single document could have become the center of attention instead of the transformed lives it was meant to inspire. Rather than leaving parchment, Jesus transformed people. people. Fishermen became leaders, tax collectors became teachers, ordinary men and women carried his words into cities they had never imagined visiting, turning personal testimony into what outlived empires. Christianity survived persecution, political opposition, imprisonment, and even executions. Still, the message continued spreading. Long before churches dominated skylines, believers gathered quietly in homes, caves, and hidden meeting places to share the same teachings, gathering faith and departing. What began with a small group of followers eventually spread across continents. Over centuries, the teachings preserved in the Gospels were translated 100 languages, reaching cultures and civilizations far beyond the Roman world.
We may never know with complete certainty why Jesus never wrote a book. The Gospels themselves don't explain his decision, but history suggests that his centered on teaching people directly, forming disciples, and entrusting them to carry his message. Whether viewed through faith or history, that choice have shaped the course of civilization.
2,000 years later, billions still know the name of Jesus, even though he never wrote a single book. Perhaps his greatest work was never meant to be written on papers, it was always meant to be written in people. If this story made you see history from a new perspective, subscribe for more fascinating documentaries that explore the mysteries behind the world's most influential events.